Hòa hảo Buddhism is a religion based on the teachings of the Buddha. It is so named because it was established in Hòa hảo village, Chau Doc province in Ao Lac or Vietnam. The two words Hòa hảo also connote harmony and goodness. It was founded by Prophet Huyen Phu So in 1939. At a young age, Prophet Huyen Phu So went into the sacred mountains of Tat Son and Ta Lon and studied under a teacher who imparted to him the knowledge and the ability to cure all illnesses. He attained enlightenment after a period of time. When he emerged from these holy mountains, Prophet Huyen Phu So began to heal people through the use of simple herbs, water, and acupuncture. He also composed 6 scriptures and hundreds of verses and prose of transcendental values. His style of writing is comprehensive, concise, very appealing, and easy to understand. Today we present excerpts of the teachings of Prophet Huyen Phu So. A roundabout method and a shortcut method. Live a virtuous and righteous life. To go to the Buddha's realm, cultivate yourself on earth. Prophet Huyen. There was a time when the master temporarily stayed at Mr. Va Mao Tan's house in Kanto province. At that time, Mr. Banga and Mr. Hai Hui of Phuan village wanted to listen to the master's lecture. While on the way to see the master, both agreed that when they got there, Mr. Nga would ask to stay with the master to practice spiritually and serve him while Mr. Hai Hui would sail back home alone.
After listening to the master's lecture, Mr. Banga asked to follow the master to practice spiritually. The master said nothing. His eyes seemed to behold Mr. Banga with some emotion. Then the master went straight to his room. A short while later he came out and handed Mr. Nga 7 coins, saying, "If you want to practice spiritually, build a hut in your backyard to practice there. Here are 7 coins. Take them for your trip home." Mr. Nga was reluctant to take the money, saying, "I travel by boat, thus it doesn't cost money, respected master." But the master told him, "If I give them to you, you must take them, and later you will understand."
When he reached Hòa hảo Ancestral Temple, Mr. Banga fell seriously ill and had to remain there. Mr. Hai Hui sailed back to Phuan village to give the news. Mr. Nga's family then rented a cart to go to the ancestral temple to bring him home. Exactly 7 days after he parted with the master, Mr. Banga passed away. After Mr. Banga passed away, Mr. Hai Hui brooded over his death. He visited the master to give the news, but before he could say anything, the master said, "Mr. Nga's time on earth is only that much."
Mr. Hui respectfully asked the master, "Will Mr. Nga's soul be at peace to continue his practice?" The master answered, "I've already delivered him, but that is just a roundabout way of practicing, because Mr. Nga had to leave his body just as he realized the Tao." Upon hearing that, Mr. Hui asked, "Master has just said that Mr. Nga was practicing a roundabout method, so what is the shortcut method? Please teach me so I can understand."
The master then explained further, if a person still has the physical body like you do, who works to earn a living while at the same time cultivating himself and helping many other people, influencing them to practice spiritually, then that is the quick method. Mr. Hai Hui realized that his deceased friend had only attained self-realization, but no longer had the body to carry out the work of enlightening others. His friend didn't have the opportunity to help other people in the material and spiritual aspects, so that he could increase his storehouse of merits. Because only through helping others could one reach one's ultimate spiritual goal.
Novice and veteran spiritual practitioners. In 1943, the master was staying at Mr. Wo Beng Yui's house in Bak Liu. At that time, there was a monk nearby who had practiced spiritually for over 30 years. He was very well versed in Buddhist sutras as well as Confucianism. When he learnt that the master was only 20 years old and hadn't practiced for too long but was already giving public lectures, he was anxious to see the master to question him.
On one occasion, an opportunity presented itself and allowed the monk to go to Mr. Gyoi's house. When the owner of the house and guests sat down to have tea, the monk immediately asked, "Mr. Tu," the master's householder nickname, "can you tell me who has more spiritual merit, a novice spiritual practitioner or the one who has practiced for over 30 years?" The master cheerfully replied, "Their spiritual merits are the same."
Surprised, the monk was about to debate further, but the master waved his hand to stop him and said, "It's similar a person who lives near a river and bathes every day. However, he only does it just for the sake of bathing, but not really to clean himself. While the other person works on a farm in a remote field where there is a shortage of water. Thus he rarely has the chance to bathe and therefore is dirty. But one day he runs into a big river with cool, refreshing water. He then cleanses and scrubs himself thoroughly. After a few times bathing like that, he becomes much cleaner than the other person who lives near the river." Upon hearing the master's explanation, the monk understood and asked no more. He stood up, put his palms together, expressed his admiration for the master, and took his leave.
Do not evade your responsibility. In the spring of 1940, Mr. Trang Duc and his mother visited the master while he was still living at Hua Hao Ancestral Temple. After listening to the master's discussion of the Dharma, or true teaching, Mr. Duc and his mother asked to become the master's disciples. The master gave each person an incense stick and told them to kneel before the altar as he read the vows of taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, or true teaching, and the Sangha, or community of monks, for the mother and son to repeat after him.
A while later, Mr. Zhang Duc approached the master and putting his palms together, he said, "Please allow me to go up to Gum Mountain to practice until the day I attain enlightenment and liberation." The master looked at him gravely and replied, "A spiritual practitioner should not seek to evade his responsibilities. Moreover, the Buddha is within you." Hearing the master's advice, Mr. Duc dropped the idea of going to the mountain to do spiritual practice. He went home with his mother and continued to make a living while practicing at the same time until the end of his life.
Through this story, it was obvious that upon entering the gate of truth, the householder practitioner, Trang Duc, was firm in his determination, desirous of going to the mountain to practice so that he could attain the Tao and liberation. This is a common mindset of spiritual practitioners. They believe that spiritual practice means distancing themselves from the worldly life, going deep into the forest and mountain, or performing ascetic practices, and then they could quickly attain enlightenment.
Buddha was at the tip of the islet. At the end of 1939, Mr. Deng Tangdo's mother went to Hua Hao's Holy Land to visit the master. She personally witnessed the following story. That day, after the lecture session, the master suddenly saw a small boat carrying 4 or 5 women anchoring by the ancestral temple. When they disembarked, the women went straight to the main hall to worship. Afterward, they approached the master, putting their palms together and said, "Respected master, we've just arrived."
The master returned their greetings and asked, "Where are you from?" "Respected master, we came from Anfong village." "Why do you come here?" "Respected master, we came here first to worship the Buddha and afterward visit with you." The master smiled and said, "I appreciate your sincerity very much. But the Buddha was at the islet. He's not here for you to worship."
Upon hearing the master saying so, the women looked at each other. They were all thinking, how could the master know so well what had happened to us? After a short silence, one woman stood up, with her palms together, said, "Respected master, on our way here, when reached the tip of Danglam Islet, we encountered strong wind and big waves. Water entered our boat and it almost sank. All of us were reciting the Buddha's names non-stop." The master asked further, "And when the waves subsided, you also stopped reciting the Buddha's names, right?"
Knowing what the master said was true, the women smiled sheepishly and dared not utter another word. The master then continued in a serious tone. "The respect for the Buddhas and God and the recital of their names, you should do that all the time. Don't wait until you encounter mishaps to do it." When the master finished, everyone was happy because they had just learned another valuable lesson.
Endurance. Mr. Wing Bun Phom was a native of Gin Phom province. Having realized early on that life is full of suffering and all things are impermanent, he went to Gum Mountain to focus on self-cultivation. After visiting many beautiful locations, Mr. Phom stopped at Dayun with some fellow practitioners to focus on their practice. One late afternoon, white clouds enveloped the trees and cliff, and the autumn breeze was blowing gently.
Mr. Pham went outside and stood in front of the shrine's door to enjoy the cool weather when suddenly he saw a group of people approaching from the foot of the mountain. As they neared, he saw walking in front a young man of about 20 years old. The young man was tall, composed, and refined. His skin was white, his face was pinkish, and his whole being exuded a sense of dignity and righteousness. That was Prophet Huyn. And the other 5 walking behind him were his disciples.
The group rested overnight at the shrine. That night the master gave a lecture. Mr. Pham could still remember one advice of the master from that lecture. For your spiritual practice to yield fruits, you should get rid of your hot-tempered disposition. Then the master posed a question. If someone brings a gift to you, but you determinedly refuse it, then what will they do next?
No one quite understood the master's intention, so they all remained silent. The master continued, "If we don't take it, then they have to take it back. Similarly, if someone is impolite or slanders us, yet we are able to endure it and feel no resentment, then of course that person will have to bear all the resulting bad karma or retribution." It's been a joy to have you with us today for Between Master and Disciples. Planet Earth, Our Loving Home, is up next right after noteworthy news. Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television. May divine light shine brightly on you and your loved ones every joyous moment of your lives.
For more details, please visit www.suprememastertv.com/BMD